Hey everybody, so it's me and Bill. So today what we're going to talk about is buyer's remorse. It seems like more and more people are regretting buying a house in 2020 and 2021. And it's a lot of it. It's not even a little bit. It's like you hear stories all the time. There was one survey that I read that 72% have regrets on buying a house. So we're going to talk about what their regrets are and how you could prevent it if you decide to buy a house in the future. So here we go. All right, so the big thing that happened during the COVID time is fear of losing out on a home. And there was, because everybody was working from their house, they thought they could work from anywhere in the United States. What do you think, Bill?
Yep, that was a couple reasons, so as more people got into the market because the interest rates dropped significantly to unheard of numbers, which we've never seen before, that brought a lot of people into the market that would have otherwise not been able to afford a property. So as the inventory declined, the prices went up and up and up and up and up, and the bidding wars began and the overpaying.
And some of the bidding wars were a little crazy. I seen 5, 10. I even heard one realtor told me somebody bid at 50,000 over asking.
And that was normal, which was crazy. So, but if you think about it, at 2% interest, you paid over 50,000. And then you conversely, now you're going back into the market where the equity gains have been substantial over the last 2 years, but the interest rates are at like 5.5%, 6.5%. Was it really that crazy?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's a little balancing act there.
Yeah, but now a lot of them are regretting buying it.
Yeah.
So here's one of my things that I hear people saying. So one of the things, as a home inspector, that people are telling me is they're waiving home inspections. Because they were waiving home inspections, they moved into the house. And then they realized there was a lot of problems with the house.
Right. So
and they didn't have the money for it.
Yeah, so people started waiving because without contingencies, which are, conditions that must be met, for the deal to go through, they were like you said, they were waiving inspections. So now you're getting the bare bones inspections, a 4-point and a win, just so you could get, insurance on the property. And you weren't going into a deep, comprehensive home inspection, which I never recommended, and I tried to at least get a day or two inspection period.
You always ask for home inspections. That was cool. Believe it or not, this year I'm busier as a home inspector than I was at the peak of the selling season during COVID.
I can believe that.
It's crazy.
Everybody's getting inspections now, where it's somewhat back to normal.
Right.
Where inspections are kind of normal. It's, we went to 3 days, 5 days, now 7 days is about the average inspection period, so you can get, all your homework done. Look at insurance, get the property inspected, get, plumbers out there to look at different things that may or may not be wrong with the property.
Yeah, and so now, and what's happening is now they're finding out that the house needs an air conditioner or a problem in the attic and stuff.
Right.
And now that they put all the money into the house, by overpaying for the house, they can't afford to do the fixes.
Exactly. So
it's like they kind of screwed themselves.
Sometimes, yeah, maybe, yeah.
If they didn't get the right house.
Right.
In my opinion, not getting an inspection was not a smart move.
Right.
All right, let's go for another one. All right, Bill, give us another one.
So what we're also starting to see now is a change in circumstance. And what I mean by that is previous buyers of mine are now becoming listings because circumstances changed, and where they were allowed to work remotely, their companies are starting to call them back.
That's true.
So, maybe you were up north, out west, what have you, you're in another state. Now you've moved to Florida and your remote work is done and they want you back in the office.
Yeah, I mean, one of them, the boomerang sellers, actually went back to do another inspection for the same house. What happened was they qualified for a mortgage, and 3 or 4 months later, the wife got laid off.
Oof.
So now they can't afford the house.
Right.
So that's the circumstance thing. That now they have to sell the house because they didn't plan on it. I guess they just felt like the job is always going to be there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, I've had these conversations with some of my clients in the past too. Just because you're approved for 600, 700, 300, whatever the case is, whatever you're approved for at the top end, that doesn't mean you have to spend that amount of money. Realistically, you should be looking at a property that you can afford, not overextending yourself. Because, you know, like I came from the fire department, and one of the younger guys at the fire department bought his first house, and we had this conversation. He wanted to buy the more expensive house because it was cool.
Yeah.
But I talked to him, I said, what if you get hurt? You're a fireman.
Yeah.
You can't work your part-time job. You're relying on secondary income. These are things that you really need to take into consideration. Savings, because when you're hurt, you can't necessarily work your second job.
Yeah.
Particularly when you work for the fire department.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
those
crazy.
are things everybody needs to take into consideration.
Yeah, so basically, just because the bank says they're willing to give you money, like cars, you know, they were selling cars for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 over MSRP. Now look at what's happening with cars. Now prices are going back down to normal MSRP, and the people have all negative equity in the cars because
Cars were already bad enough.
just because they said, hey, we'll lend you the money for this car, doesn't mean you should take it.
Exactly.
It's a crazy situation.
I know they say like 3 months savings, but I mean, if 6 months to a year, so that there's no issues. One of my own clients lost their job. Now
Really?
they got another job, but they lost their own job right before they purchased a house. Thank goodness, you know, it did, because it didn't put them into a bind. But you know, I felt horrible. But I mean, silver lining is they didn't get into their second property carrying 2 properties at once, and then you know, he had the super misfortune now to have lost his position in his company from downsizing.
Yeah. All right, I got one. The people that I think are fine, okay, that bought a house in 2021 during the peak when everybody was buying, if they're planning to be in the house for a long time and their circumstances did not change, I don't think they're going to be hurt. I think they'll be okay. But the people that bought a house with the intention to sell within a year or two and upgrade, thinking that the values are going to increase, was unrealistic. So now they're stuck with a house because you know, they just kept seeing the trend going up, 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 and up, and they're like, all right, I'll buy now, I'll pay extra, and 6 months to 8 months I'll have more equity. But the market has changed. What do you think?
Yeah, like people who bought right at the pandemic, beginning of the pandemic, they realized those returns from the massive, you know, 18 to 22% equity gains we had year over year,
Right.
Over the last 2 years. But the market has started to normalize, and you know, due to the economic changes trying to slow the market down because we were hot, our inventory is super low, and it's not the same anymore. And I run into that constantly, trying to list super high and thinking that the 6 months ago, a year ago, that was what we should be getting for our properties, but it's unrealistic now.
Yeah.
Our interest rates aren't 3% anymore. You know,
and the people that have 3% mortgage rates,
they're not going to move.
they're not going to sell the house. They're going to give up a 3% to go to a 7% rate.
No.
There's no way. They're not going to do that.
Not right now.
No.
Maybe when their circumstances change and they've been in the property for a while, they'll consider it, but that's going to slow people down. I mean, right now they're kind of theorizing that we were on the average of 7 years is when somebody sells their house.
Okay.
And now they're pushing, like the average person, they're anticipating at 10 years before they resell their house again, unless there's some sort of a circumstance, you know, upgrade, downgrade buyer.
It's probably going to be a while till rates go back down.
Yeah.
To boost it all up, you know?
Exactly. Although we are seeing things normalize right now, at least We're starting to stabilize.
Is it at pre-pandemic levels yet?
Not quite. We're getting there.
Yeah,
we're getting there. They're hoping everything will kind of get pre-pandemic levels by the end of this year, 2023, which would be very, very nice. You know, something that off subject maybe a little bit, but people have to realize that the interest rates for mortgages and the economy, they're driven by two different factors. You know, and just because the economy is doing one thing doesn't mean that the real estate economy isn't doing something polar opposite.
Yeah, yeah. Like values, you know, in certain areas are still going up. It's crazy.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
They're going up because lack of inventory.
Yep. So it's still driving the market to be higher because supply and demand issues are starting to kick in. So despite the interest rates, there's still cash buyers. There's still people qualifying for mortgages. There's more and more programs out now too to help first-time buyers so that they can get into the market.
Yeah.
And they have a fair shake now, which is actually really nice. There's another one coming out July 1st. It's supposed to be implemented. It hasn't been signed yet, but fingers crossed that program will be a offshoot of the Hometown Heroes or an extension of the Hometown Heroes program.
All right, Bill, what's another one?
People settled because they had to. You need a place to live. At the end of the day, you have to have a place to put your head at night. So people settled on properties, and maybe it's not the place that you really want it to be because you just needed a house. You know, you needed a place to lay down, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is I deal with a lot of buyers and sellers, and, you know, and the sellers are telling me, it's like, yeah, when we bought it, this is the only thing we could find, but the bedrooms are too small.
Yep.
You know, the backyard is too small. You know, the house needs too much work. You know, so they really didn't think it through. They just didn't want to lose out.
Right, because they probably lost 4, 5, 6 deals because that's what people were writing in some cases. They were putting offers in on 4, 5, and 6 properties, you know, because they were getting 20 offers on a house, 15 offers on a house. I got some of these investment properties that I had during COVID would have 30 and 40 offers on a house. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, but at the same time, everybody loses out to a big cash buyer coming in.
And that's how they lose, because somebody comes in with cash, kerplunk, and nobody wants to finance a house during that time. So there's a lot of pent-up buyer demand as well. But to the point, people had to settle. And while there's no perfect house, you know, no matter where you go, you're not going to find the perfect house. There's always going to be something that's not perfect for you. But a lot of concessions were made on their wants.
Well, at the same time, people did settle at the beginning for a while and overpaid, and now they regret it. It's facts. The surveys say 70% of people, but those same people, if they are holding on to the house and 4 or 5 years goes by, the circumstances could change, and it could be worth a lot more than what they paid for. But if they want to sell right now, it's not a good time.
Yeah, it's tough. Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. The best advice I can give on that is if you do need to sell, that's one of those things where, you know, sit down, make an appointment, and we can run numbers and look at hard facts versus maybe what, you know, you're seeing on the
no matter where
news,
where you are in the United States, it doesn't cost you anything to sit down with somebody.
Exactly.
And get comps for the area, see what's going on in your market. Don't listen to YouTube channels because each market is different.
Unless it's ours.
and it's Florida.
Oh.
All right, so I know a lot of people regret buying a house from 2020, 2021. The market will change. So if you could live with it for 4 or 5 years, my personal opinion, I think you'll be fine. If you need to sell it right now, okay, it is what it is. You may be losing money depending on where you are in the country. But yeah, people, to recap, they regret it. Their jobs, they lose their jobs, or their income changes, or the jobs, they can't work from home anymore, or a family emergency, anything could happen. Or something breaks in the house. just, if you're going to buy a house now, make sure you have plenty of reserves. And I'm not talking about reserves like the bank is saying, oh, have 90 days of mortgage payments in there. I'm talking about have money in there for unexpected repairs, for mortgages. Just look at it like, consider yourself like, okay, I lost my job. All right, it's going to be 6 months, 7 months before I find a job again. Yeah. That's the way you got to look at it, you know? Worst case scenario, you lose your job and you need it. Best case scenario, you don't lose your job and look at all the money you have saved.
Savings.
And that's it. Anyways, guys, this is today's video. Regrets. As always, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and we'll speak to you on the next video.